Thank you very much for joining us on Viewpoint here on Dbs Television. Good evening to you all joining us at this particular moment. In Cameroon, 9 regions have been touched by the COVID-19 pandemic, with the recent one being the Northwest region, where a resident from Douala actually traveled back home, and of course he has been tested positive for the coronavirus. And given that the Northwest and the Southwest regions have been hit already by the socio-political crisis, the coronavirus has come as another challenge again for the authorities in those respective regions, given the fact that the far north region, that is Mara, is the only region that is free as of now for COVID-19. Well said. Our guest tonight is Takon Otto Dominic. Good evening to you, and thanks very much for being part of us this night.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be among you people.
Mange Venashus, our regular guest, is with us. Good evening to you, Venashus.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers.
Let's have the first segment of the show, that is the yes or no question. It is the first segment of the show. If you are just joining us, you're watching Viewpoint. Let us take the first question. Does the strategy to shut down everything from 6 p.m. really beneficial to the protection of the population? To you, Mr. Takon. Yes or no?
No.
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 Mange Venashus, is it beneficial to the population?
Yes, Vanessa.
Yes. Let us take question number 2. Sectors completely shut down in the country. Are the measures taken by the government for them? I would start with you, Otto.
Yeah.
Yes, he says yes. Mange Venashus, are you of the fact that the shutdown in the country is actually the best measure taken by the government?
Yes, Vanessa.
Yes. Let me tick my box. Let us take question number 3. Mange Venashus, I will begin with you. Students are not allowed to come together to learn in respecting COVID-19 restrictive measures. Will this be the case during exams? Mange Venashus.
This is a very intriguing question, and my answer is no.
His answer is no. And to you, Otto?
My answer is yes.
His answer is yes. You are thinking. Yeah. All right. Mange Venashus said it's a very tricky question. Let us take question number 4. With precaution measures taken in the transport sector, where they meant, I take all over. With precaution measures taken in the transport sector, where they meant also to increase tariff fare. Yes or no, Mr. Takon?
No. They weren't.
They were not meant to. Mange Venashus, were these precautions actually meant to increase the tariff fare?
No, I don't think so.
No, he doesn't think so. And the last question for today, we took it yesterday, but we never discussed on it, and so we will be taking it all over today. The G20 postponed the debt of some African countries, including Cameroon. Is the act beneficial to these countries? Mr. Otto?
Yes, I think so. It's beneficial.
He thinks it's beneficial. And to Mange Venashus?
I differ with that opinion. I think it is not.
It is not. All right. That responded to the first part of the show. Let us go now to enter into the debate. All right, Mr. Takon, you said no, that the strategy to shut down everything as from 6 p.m. is not beneficial for the protection of the population. What actually justifies your response?
Thank you, Vanessa. To my point of view, the fact that the government is asking the population to stay back home is not to stay back home after 6 p.m. is not beneficial, because really if we have to all come out from 8 to 6, and then from 6 p.m. to midnight we have to go back home, I don't think is a good strategy, because really, if at the beginning of it, the strategy is to keep for us to stay home safe, so that you minimize the transfer of the disease. So if we are supposed to use but some period of the day to stay back home, and then at a certain period again we all come back together, I don't think there is a point. It really makes a point of safeguarding the population from the disease. It doesn't, to my point of view.
All right, Manga Venatius, rather you said it is going to protect the population.
Yes, Vanessa, when I say, this measure is, we are saying if it is really beneficial, yes, for the protection of the population. And I think the measure is meant at reducing social contact, reducing social, mobility. Because within the day, we assume that each and everyone is, confined by his work, what we are doing. But at night, that is when most of this, especially drinking sports, if you look at it, the government was actually clear on drinking sports, saying that we should shut them down as from 6 p.m. People drink in Cameroon. When we talk of drinking, it is obvious in Cameroon. From 6 o'clock, that's when people come together and drinking sports, and they drink till midnight, like he was saying. At that moment, it is not possible to control, because with the effect of the alcohol, you may not be able to, you are not in full control of your faculties. It is the same thing the government is preaching, this lockdown in Cameroon, we are in partial lockdown for those who can, and that you should only move out if it is that necessary. I think that when they say we should remain at home after 6 p.m., it is another form of reducing those useless, I call them useless movements, useless social interaction, because we can do without drinking. Vanessa, if you don't drink, you will not die in Cameroon. So if we can do the list, the ones that we cannot avoid, maybe going to the market, maybe going to work for those sectors that are still ongoing, then when it comes to the one that we can hold it, in the evening we suspend every activity. So it's possible to stop that, and with that I think it is beneficial in as much as it concerns health. If it is health, then it will be beneficial, Vanessa.
But Manga Venatius, during the day, we see that, let's say, snack bars, they are more crowded as compared to the evening. They are crowded.
It is this lack of respect, lack of response from the part of the public, because in as much as the government says all drinking spots should be closed down from 6 p.m., they insist that there is this social distancing, that we should respect it, because we don't want to respect. If we were to respect that, it will have nothing, because like I said, those are areas that we cannot do without. Those are areas that we cannot so completely close it to say that don't function. Now they have given priority to such. Then when it comes to it is optional. If they say don't drink, I don't think there's anybody who can fall sick because he or she did not drink. That's why they say from 6 p.m. at least you have done the ones that it is unavoidable for our existence. Drinking is not that necessary for our existence. So we can do away without drinking. That's why they say close it down now, because we want to fight the spread of this virus, Vanessa.
Let us take question number 2. Sectors completely shut down in the country, and it goes that, are there measures taken by the government for these sectors? For example, let us say like schools have been shut down. Are there measures that have been taken for the teachers? And Otto told us that yes, it is, measures have been taken for them. So maybe Otto, why do you think measures have been taken? Is it that all the teachers are being paid while they are at home? Is it that the students are actually happy while they are at home?
On that, really, we know that as far as government, it is true that is as my colleague said, it's a kind of tricky question, because I would say it's partial. That is the helping hand of the government is really partial, because we all know that those that are entitled to government, they are entitled to the government. They do have 12 on 12 salary. That is 12 on 12 salary, as I say it. So there is, I believe that the government teachers, they are fine because they do have their salaries. Now, where it is really, it's still cloudy, that we don't really know whether the government is taking charge, is the private sectors.
All right, but then are the proprietors not actually willing? Because let us say that they were almost getting to the second term holidays, and so parents must have paid all their children's fee. So is it that the proprietors will keep the money to themselves without paying the teachers, or what is actually happening?
I think I got in contact with some few colleagues that they were happy because at least the proprietors were able to pay them for the month before we went on this confinement issue, and then for the past month now, since we have been on confinement for the past month at least, they are able to be entitled to half their salary for them to at least survive for the moment.
And what of the situations of our markets? Because now they also have a limited time to go to the markets. There are days that markets are even shut down.
That goes to the first point. I think I said it that normally the measures that were pronounced by the government for us to stay back home, they are not that respected, because from 8 o'clock, that is from even 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., there is maximum contact, and there is maximum all the sectors are almost all the sectors are open. So if in the market, you go now to the market, they are full, everything is open, so waiting for 6 o'clock to come. So I think there are means for people to buy whatever they want to buy during this period.
Manga Venashus, you also accepted the fact that yes, there are measures taken by government for all these sectors that are being shut down at a particular moment.
Yes, Vanessa, with your guest, you were talking about the educational sector, and you were citing the issue of salaries. And I would ascertain and inform you that if there are 10 schools, only about 9 may still talk about fee, because when you look at the calendar or the period within which they are supposed to pay fee, by January, February, fees have been collected. All the fees have been collected. So proprietors who have not paid their teachers on the content, trying to say that because children have not paid their school fees, they just want to be, I don't want to call it a type, because they have the means to pay. The salaries should have been budgeted for the 9 months for those who are 9 months, and for 12 months for those who are 12 months. But then let's not only limit the educational sector only when it comes to salary. If you look at what the government did, there are online classes that are going on. I take, for example, in the state media, CRTV, there are classes that are going on to prepare examination class students and pupils, such that once they are at home, they should not, at least, they should not completely, missed everything. That is why they have classes to keep going. Those are measures that have been taken, because that sector has been closed down completely. So when we talk of on the salary, we look at it from the other sector too. And when you look at it, the government has been insisting and reminding teachers, especially private proprietors, that they should pay I remember the Minister of Secondary Education, she insisted on private proprietors that they should pay the salary of the month of March. There is nothing that they can complain, because we did not know for how long. Remember when this confinement was launched, it was only for 2 weeks that they gave us. We thought that by then we would walk out of it. We are going into another 15 days. That's the third time. Now we expect the government to come back to tell us what will happen to those teachers, because as of now, they were supposed to be in school. They were supposed to resume maybe around the 13th of this month. So we are expecting the government to come back to tell us what should be happening now with these private sectors. Should they pay? Our concern is with the private sector. But when it comes to education per se, the government has taken enough measures. These measures may not be 100% effective, but the measures are there to help it in such a way that the children are prepared for their end of year exam. So, and I think there are every hope that we cannot talk about, a blank year. That's why the government adopted that measure of online courses. It's not only the government. Vanessa, I will tell you that there are some private schools that they have organized online classes. There are some private schools that they are sharing information, sharing notes, lesson notes to their parents, because most schools now they are in direct contact with the parents of their pupils or the students. So they give notes to parents. They send them through WhatsApp. Actually, I received from my children's school, so I have them. If I am lazy to rehearse with my children, it is because I am lazy, not because the school did not play their part. So I think private schools measures are being taken. It is a virus that took us unaware. So everybody is trying to adapt to the situation. That is why those measures are coming in as we are facing the difficulties. People are adapting. So I think measures have been taken, Vanessa.
The third question is still focused on education, and we asked whether students are not being allowed to learn now because of the COVID-19, because they are respecting the restrictions of COVID-19. And then we asked, will it be the case during exams? Will students not be allowed again to come together because during the period of exams? And Mr. Takon said yes, that will be the case. How would that be?
To my point of view, as I said it, if during lesson hours the students are not being allowed to come together, I don't think it's during the exams during the official exam that they shall be allowed to be crowded in a room. To me, I believe that when that period will come, the government will have to take measures to limit the number of students per hall, so as to respect the precautions as far as the COVID-19 is concerned.
Thank you very much for your point, Takon. Mangavenashus, you were actually opposing the point of view, but I think that during normal official exams, the students don't sit on the same benches. At least there is a distance between the students, but you see it as no way to respect these measures.
Yes, Vanessa, when I take an official exam like the GCE exam that I am versed with, I understand the number of of the candidates that always go in for the exams, and there are few accommodation centers that can really respect this 1 meter, distancing between candidates. So when I say that students will not be allowed, I think that if the government can suspend schools, classes, because of fear of the spread of this virus, nothing would stop the government from, taking measures in such a way that these exams are written within the acceptable norms. Nothing would stop the government from making sure that, if you look at some societies, like I take example, the French society, France have been of the opinion when this virus started, actually, they rolled out the question of writing the official exams. And the measure they adopted was they will study your first and second term results and then give you the back.
And plus your class participation.
Correct. Those results, yes, and your class participation, they will give you the back. Which means if you were a poor student within the course of the year, you would likely be a poor student when it comes to official exam. The guest that we had here yesterday actually informed us that in fact, almost all schools have gone past two-thirds of the work that is supposed to be done. So if we can assess that work, it is preferable that we stop the children from writing the exams, because we cannot accommodate them in a hall that will be able to respect this 1 meter distancing, and even respecting the 1 meter distancing in the hall. When they go out of the hall, would they be able to respect it? Who will be there to run behind the 1,000 candidates who will be in each accommodation center to make sure that you don't get close to another person 1 meter? So I think the government can cancel the exams and go use the strategy that some other countries like France, as I cited, are using. Let's just study their results and give them their certificates if they merit it.
Mangavenashus, I continue with you with question number 4. We said with precaution measures taken in the transport sector, were they meant to also increase the tariff fare? It's not been, let's say, a month that I traveled to Yaoundé, and of course, that is the situation you could see on the ground. The transport fare has increased from 1,000 francs to 2,000 francs, but then the passengers on board have been reduced. You were of the fact that it wasn't meant to be so. So don't you think that it's actually profitable to the population, or it's not beneficial to the population?
Was it meant to reduce the tariff?
To increase the tariff fare?
I said no, it wasn't meant to increase the tariff, because the point was reduce the number of passengers in each bus, in each car, to make sure that they reduce. It is the same, it links from the previous question we were talking about. to reduce the number, the contact, to limit the contact between the passengers. When they talk of reducing the number of passengers per car, the bus, they did not say fuel prices would also be reduced. Because it would take, for example, a bus that is supposed to carry 70 passengers has been cut down to carry 50. Those extra 20 passengers, just those 20 could be able to fuel the car, which means the owner is working on 30 passengers, for example. Now, if he has to continue with the old price, that is, he cannot break even. But then the government did not. He would be working.
He's working on losses.
Yes. So the government did not add the other measure because they would have subsidized the cost of fuel to make sure that once they reduced the number of passengers, they will have no problem. And that is why that measure has been unable to succeed in the country, because accompanying measures have not been. There are some measures that they take without looking at the subsequent consequences that are related to such measures. So it would have been profitable to say that, okay, from when these measures went into force, once you reduce the number, fuel prices will also have to reduce. In that case, it will maintain the tariff, transport fare for the population. But once they reduce the number and fuel, on the contrary, may even increase, there are possibilities that these are businessmen. The incidence of that act will fall on the passenger, because he would have to pay more if he's intending to arrive his destination or her destination, Vanessa.
Mr. Takon, you had the same point of view that no, actually these measures were not meant to increase the tariff fare.
Yes, and I still maintain that no, it was not meant. The reduction of the number of passengers in the transport or in the car was asked to be reduced, but not for the tariff fare to be increased. But I think there's really a problem with that. The government maybe took such a decision without fully engaging the fact that less passengers is less money, and then the capital of the drivers is going to surely also dropped. So I think the government would have completed that decision with, as my colleague earlier said, with reduction of the fuel, the prices of the fuel. Yeah, that would have helped so much, because it's a good initiative. Three persons per taxi. It's a good initiative, but the thing is, how are the taxi drivers going to survive with that? How are they going to survive? So I think the government, is a good initiative, but they should complete it by reducing the
prices of fuel.
The prices of the fuel.
All right.
That will help so much.
That is the point of view of Mr. Takon Otho. And let us take the last question for today. We asked that the G20 postponed the debt of some African countries, including Cameroon. Is the act beneficial to these countries? And you said yes, it is beneficial. How beneficial it is, given that maybe the same interest rate remains the same or might increase? How beneficial it is?
To me, as I said, it's beneficial, because at least the African countries will not be concentrated in paying their debts. Rather, they will focus on relieving their citizens from the disease, from the COVID-19 that is really an issue in the countries. So that will help, although some countries are still begging for even 2 years. So which means that it is really beneficial.
All right, Mangavelashus, you said it is not beneficial for these countries, and given that some countries do not even they have not even taken the measures to take out some money from their coffers to assist in the fight of the pandemic. So how beneficial it is? You said it is not.
Yes, Vanessa, I said it is not. Remember, we're talking about postponing the debt owed by these African countries to these members of the G20. It is not saying that they have been cancelled. If they were cancelled, we could understand that it means they have given them the money. But it is simply postponing. And in economic world, when we talk of borrowing from somebody, you don't borrow and expect, if I borrow 10,000 francs from you, Cameroon borrows 10,000 from France, they are not going to pay 10,000 to France. That the act of borrowing money comes with some interest. Now they have postponed the payment of that debt to another 1 year. What did not accompany this act was they would have cancelled the interest rate that is supposed to be yielding with this debt. But instead, they have simply postponed it. And in simple terms that my mother will understand in the village, it means the debt I was owing you since it was coming every month, they have added it from 1 year to 2 years, which means if at the end of the year I was supposed to pay an interest of 10,000, I have an interest to pay now of 20,000. That is where the problem is. It does not benefit them. Remember, we are at a crisis moment. And what awaits us, what awaits every economy, worst of all African economies, is a deep recession that we are expecting to drive into in the near future once this COVID-19 subsides. So when we are entering in such a recession, and we are still owing these countries, you know what that will mean? Because at that time, they need the money. They are not also on good footings. They need the money too because their economies are also crumbled. So they would also be mounting pressures on us to respect our engagement. Remember, instead of paying last year, we postponed you. There's no way you can beg again that. Let's add it. Those who want to add it for 2 months, for 2 years, like Mr. Takon said, they are not looking at the long run, the long-term effect. Adding it for 2 years, he will give you because you will still pay the 10,000 and the interest keeps multiplying, and you would have to pay. So that is the reason why I think that it does not help them at all. It were preferable. Ask for the money and they pay now. We know that once we get into a recession, we'll handle it our own way. Vanessa, they tell you that...
A few seconds, Mangaven, I should things were running out of
Yes,
time.
Vanessa, they tell you that you don't have money. That once you have money in your pockets and you owe somebody, you are a poor man. But once you don't have money and you don't owe anybody, you are a rich man. So I think we should look at it from that concept to say that the act does not benefit African countries at all.
All right. Thank you very much for being part of us, Mange Venashus. And to you, Mr. Takon Otto, one last word before we go.
COVID-19 is real, and they say prevention is better than cure. So I will really advise everyone to take good, to really stick to the measures that has been stipulated by the Ministry of Health.
Public Health.
So really it's real, so we really have to do everything to stick to those precautions.
All right, it was our pleasure actually having you in tonight's edition.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, like he rightly said, prevention is better than cure. So make sure that at your own level you've taken personal measures in order to help the government and help your entire community stop the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Until we meet again, stay blessed and keep watching DBS television.